At first glance, Spider-Noir Season 1 looks like a dark detective story set in a gritty 1930s New York, where private investigators, gangsters, and politicians all fight for control in a corrupt city. But as the season develops, it becomes clear that the story is less about crime and more about damaged people trying to survive the consequences of their past. Nearly every major character is shaped by trauma, and their choices come from pain rather than ambition or greed. Ben Reilly begins the season emotionally shut down. He drinks heavily, avoids responsibility, and works cases without any real emotional investment. This version of Ben isn't just tired. He's someone who has emotionally withdrawn from life entirely. Ruby's death is the reason for this. Becoming the Spider once gave his life meaning, but it also indirectly led to her being killed, and that guilt has completely reshaped how he sees himself. Because of this, Ben treats heroism as something dangerous rather than noble. He believes that getting involved only creates more suffering, which is why he avoids being the Spider whenever possible. However, the season gradually forces him back into that identity, especially when people around him start getting hurt. Each time Ben becomes the Spider again, it isn't because he wants to be a hero, but because he can't ignore suffering in front of him. This internal conflict defines his entire arc. Ben isn't trying to become something new. He's trying to decide whether the part of him that wants to help others is worth the pain that comes with it. The Spider persona represents both meaning and damage for Ben. When he's the Spider, he's forced to engage with the world instead of hiding from it. When he's only Ben Reilly, he can disconnect emotionally and avoid responsibility. This duality is what makes his character so conflicted throughout the season. Robbie Robertson plays a key role in pushing Ben toward accepting that responsibility again. Robbie constantly reminds him that his actions matter, even when Ben tries to dismiss them. Unlike Ben, Robbie still believes that people can make a difference, even in a corrupt city. This belief becomes important in Episode 7, where Robbie challenges Ben's idea that stepping away from heroism would solve anything. The show ultimately argues that Ben's avoidance isn't protection. It's another form of emotional damage. Cat Hardy is one of the most morally complex characters in the season because nearly everything she does comes from survival rather than cruelty. She lies, manipulates, and betrays others, but these actions are always rooted in fear and desperation. Silvermane's influence over her life, especially after the murder of her first fiancé, shapes most of her decisions. Her relationship with Flint Marko adds another emotional layer. Flint represents loyalty and emotional honesty, while Cat represents adaptation and survival. They both love each other, but they're moving in opposite emotional directions. Flint feels doomed and accepts death as inevitable, while Cat still believes escape is possible, even if it requires betrayal. Her relationship with Ben mirrors this conflict. Ben offers emotional stability and understanding, but Cat can't fully commit to him because she's still trapped in her need to escape Silvermane's control. This creates a cycle where every attempt at freedom creates more damage instead of resolution. Flint Marko's transformation into a sand-like metahuman represents emotional fragmentation. His body literally falls apart, reflecting his mental state throughout the season. The more he uses his powers, the less stable he becomes, both physically and psychologically. Flint is also strongly tied to the season's war themes. He and several other metahumans are former soldiers who were experimented on during World War I. Their powers aren't gifts but results of trauma and scientific abuse. This makes Flint's condition even more tragic because he isn't just losing control of his powers, he's also reliving a system that treated him as disposable in the first place. His loyalty to Silvermane later in the season shows how easily broken people can be used by systems of power. Flint doesn't join Silvermane because he believes in him, but because he believes there's no other place for him to go. Silvermane represents control through exploitation. He doesn't rely on strength alone, but on understanding what broken people need in order to survive. He offers purpose, structure, and protection, but only in exchange for obedience. The metahumans become tools in his system, used to maintain power in a city that is already collapsing. What makes Silvermane dangerous isn't just violence, but calculation. He understands that fear and dependency are more effective than force. By controlling damaged people, He extends his influence without needing to directly fight his enemies. His conflict with Ben represents two opposing philosophies. Silvermane believes the world is built on control and survival of the strongest. Ben, even at his lowest point, still believes people deserve the chance to be better than their circumstances. The metahumans in Spider-Noir aren't traditional superheroes. Their abilities are unstable and often destructive, reflecting internal suffering rather than empowerment. Flint's sand body, Layden's electricity absorption, and Lonnie's enhanced strength all come with physical or emotional consequences that make their lives more painful. Dr. Faber's experiments reinforce this idea by showing how science and war combine to dehumanize people. The metahumans are treated like failures or specimens rather than people. This connects directly to the broader theme of the season, which is that systems of power often create suffering and then attempt to control it rather than fix it. Episode 7 represents the emotional climax of the season because it forces Ben to confront a clear moral decision. He has access to the antidote, which could save him and allow him to leave everything behind. Instead of taking that option, he chooses to prioritize others who are suffering more. This moment is important because it redefines what heroism means in the series. It's not about identity or destiny, but about choice. Ben doesn't become the Spider because he's forced into it. He becomes the Spider because he chooses responsibility over escape. Robbie's role in this episode is crucial because he challenges Ben's belief that self-preservation is justified. He forces Ben to acknowledge that avoiding pain doesn't make it disappear, it only transfers it to others. The finale brings all major character arcs to a conclusion by forcing them into direct conflict. Kat finally kills Silvermane, which represents her breaking free from being controlled, even though it comes at a moral cost. Flint is temporarily saved through the antidote, suggesting that redemption is still possible for him. Lonnie also finds freedom, leaving the city to start a new life. Ben's final confrontation reinforces his role as both a flawed and committed hero. Even when he is weakened and emotionally exhausted, he continues to fight for others. The return of his powers at a critical moment symbolizes that his identity as the Spider isn't gone, but something he has to continually choose to accept. The final scenes with Ben, Robbie, and Janet establish a sense of stability that was absent throughout the season. It doesn't suggest that the city is fixed or that all problems are solved. Instead, it shows that the characters have found a way to keep moving forward despite everything that has happened. At its core, Spider-Noir is about trauma, responsibility, and the difficulty of change. It argues that people are shaped by their past, but not completely controlled by it. Ben's journey is the clearest example of this idea. He begins the season believing that becoming the Spider only leads to loss, but he ends it understanding that refusing responsibility creates even more suffering. The show doesn't present heroism as something simple. Instead, it shows it as something messy, painful, and often exhausting. But despite that, it still suggests that choosing to care about others is what gives life meaning in a broken world. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.